Hello and welcome to episode 74 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is January 15th, 2018. I am Rollo McFlugel and with me is Slappy Jones 2, and we are both at McFlugel.com. The show notes page for this episode is McFlugel.com/74, where you'll be able to find links to ways to follow us and find us, as well as all the stuff we talk about on this episode. So with that, I'm going to hand it right over to Slappy, and he's going to introduce our topic and our guest.
Thank you, Rollo, and thank you, everyone, for listening to us today. Today we have a guest, Car Campit. He is going to be talking with us, about whether or not it's okay to like being an American. As libertarians, we reject everything the government does, and we would say that's usually a good idea. But what about American culture? What about living here? Hey, if you don't like it, you can leave, right? We always hear that. So should libertarians reject Americana? Is it okay to take pride in your culture or where you're from? Should you root for the United States in the Olympics, which we have coming up in a couple weeks? Car Campit, Car, thanks for joining us. What do you say to that?
Well, first, thanks a bunch for having me, guys. It's good to be casting again. And I think, I'm firmly on the side of it is absolutely okay to indulge in Americana and the American culture. I think it's one of the most incredible things to come out of kind of the human condition, especially recently. It's brought so much innovation. It's brought so much mixing of culture and new ideas that it would be, to me, I think it would be just a shame not to live in the experience. I don't know. I think I have an idea roughly where you guys stand on it, but that's my stance. I think there's just way too much to miss out on by living in, putting your head in the sand and saying I'm not an American. Now, obviously, I'm as far libertarian as you can possibly get, and I reject the United States government. I reject government, but the community, the greater community that we've built here is something that should be appreciated, in my opinion.
So are you saying that we should build a wall around the country and protect it, protect the culture with guns of the government?
Well, Raw, I'm glad you asked. I think as long as that wall only spans a certain length of the border and is violently funded, then yes, that's an ideal scenario in my mind. That's the slice of Americana.
Okay, good. Yeah,
that's the culture we like.
That's what we like. Is we like walls. No, it's just for so many reasons. I try to put myself in varying mindsets. Obviously, I totally get the GOP mindset. I mean, I don't believe it, but I understand kind of the more xenophobic, maybe a harsh word, but more of the isolationist, we have our thing and we got to keep everybody out mindset of the more mainstream Republican party. What I really don't understand is, and I'll use capital L libertarian or whatever you want to use for kind of I'll say conservatarianism and right of that. I don't understand why they have seemed to have fallen for this ruse. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the way I see it from a libertarian angle, in the broader libertarian sense, the two solutions that are proposed are, one, eliminate the welfare state, and two, build a wall, and have the government build it, by the way. So I don't know what the odds of either of those things happening is, but I can tell you they both round to zero. So why don't we just stick to our guns? Why don't we just die on the hill of non-aggression? I just don't understand. But furthermore, pragmatically, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but what the hell do you think a wall over 2 or 3 states worth of 50 is going to do?
Make people feel good, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Violate private property rights to build it, because a lot of that land's still privately owned. It's kind of the thing that gets ignored about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, one of many things. I mean, obviously the private property rights that are going to be violated to fund it, and that's going to affect 320 million Americans. It's you've got so much exposed border, and to think that putting a wall, I mean, if you watch documentaries of these drug runners and such from Mexico, I mean, the ingenuity of what they're doing is,
Pretty incredible.
it's in some sense a free market, and
Right.
or maybe in every sense it's a free market. And again, it comes down to, do you think that a bureaucracy can beat a free market? And I maintain that it can't. I mean, it may take time, but the market's going to win. The black market's going to win. The free market's going to win.
Absolutely.
And I just don't think, I don't understand why some libertarians are willing to hold that bureaucratic card in their portfolio, so to speak. It just, it doesn't make sense morally, and I don't think it makes sense pragmatically either.
So what about the fears that we often hear? They'll often point to London or Sweden and say they're letting in all these refugees. Now London has a Muslim mayor, I believe. Do we want that to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think that I'd focus on one of your operative words, and that's letting. And, maybe call me a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not sure how much letting there is. I think that there's more shipping.
Yep.
I think they're going out of their way to do this, and the whole thing kind of reeks to me. Now that's not to say that I'm ignorant of the idea of radically mixed and probably opposed cultures in close proximity. I mean, yeah, you're going to create problems. I mean, Turkey has always been at a crossroads of culture, and it's certainly got the battle wounds to prove it. But I don't think that the answer is more institutionalized violence, ever, but particularly in this instance.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is, and you see this throughout histories of major migration hubs, is when governments try to force integration, it never ends well.
Right.
Whereas when people are just allowed to kind of settle where they do, and I know you mentioned it earlier, how America has a history of mixing cultures, and you go to cities and there's a Chinatown and there's maybe a Muslim section, since we mentioned that, and it kind of works out and they become centers of culture.
Which is so awesome too, by the way. Like, I mean, how great is that? How awesome is it? I mean, I know you guys are out in southeastern Pennsylvania, and I'm a big fan of Philly. Like, a lot of my friends are from there, and I've spent a lot of time there. My dad's from PA, and a lot of these big cities, and even small ones too, have these little enclaves of culture from around the world. And you can go in and you can get Chinese, real Chinese food or Chinese ingredients for food, and just experience something a little bit different. I think that's something that is a slice of Americana. I don't think Americana is this stiff, all white necessarily culture. Although, if you want to go do that on your own, go do that on your own. That's fine too. That's the beauty of this whole thing. But what certainly has defined, I mean, if you look at something like as simple as rock and roll, I mean, that's taking the best of a number of different cultures and coming up with something pretty sweet,
Yeah.
And I think that that a lot of those cities are an easy example of how great it is when people voluntarily coexist on their own terms. And you'll notice that in a lot of those areas like Chinatown or Koreatown or Little Italy and et cetera, it's not that they're flooding into quote unquote white neighborhoods or whatever. They're kind of doing their own thing. And then people on the fringes start mingling, and then a little bit more, few more people start mingling. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of a community, and maybe they still live separately, but who cares? I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. I know it's anecdotal, but in the Philadelphia area, they have the Germantown, South Philly's Italian, and people from our parents' generation and older. There used to be like a split between the Irish and Italians. We hear stories of Irish dads or mom, don't you date that Italian?
Sure.
That doesn't happen today. It's just not. It's not even a question. You don't even ask. Like, it's gone. And when they first came over, and sure, I guess people will say, yeah, they're all European, they're all white, and that. But Italian culture is very different from Irish culture and Polish, and
No
after a
question.
generation, they all get along, and you don't even notice it, and you all live together, and there's all kinds of food and restaurants that blends together, and it works really well.
Oh yeah, and what
Yeah.
is white culture?
don't
People
know.
people say it,
I
but
don't
there's
know.
you go around the country. I mean, like you said, we're from the Philly area, but even I moved out, about 40 or 50 miles west of Philadelphia into kind of the farmy land, and it's way different than Philly. And I'm sure it's way different in where you're from, Carr.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
just New
yeah.
York culture is different. New York Italians are way different than Philadelphia Italians. It's
Yeah, man. I mean, no kidding. I mean, I'm sure if you go block to block in New York, the culture is different. And I've bounced around quite a bit in life, and it's always been something that I've noted about how different things are from place to place, and it's always fun to experience a new place. And I recently moved down to Texas from Colorado, and man, you want to talk about different cultures, and both of them are fairly white. And I mean, I guess there's quite a bit of Mexican immigration into Texas, but by and large, I mean, it's not like this is New York City. It is still fairly white, and man, that's a different culture. To not recognize that as the blanket white culture statement is just so bizarre.
It almost sounds like they want to people who take pride in white culture. It's almost like they want to take pride in something because they don't have the accomplishments or something, so they can attach themselves to something that someone else with their own skin color did, and it makes them feel good. I don't know. I don't know how to explain. I don't even know the words I'm really looking for, but it's almost like they're compensating for something.
Well, I mean, I think to put it to like kind of like play devil's advocate and get myself into their shoes. I mean, I think you're seeing that that they're associating something with very, very loosely kind of like Enlightenment ideals, and they're looking around the world and on CNN and Fox, and it's like just these horrific events that get portrayed time and time again, even though that those events are still kind of happening here to some degree. Maybe not to the same level, but I think that is driving it, and unfortunately, I think there's a little bit more of a concerning indicator, and that is like I was saying earlier, like it's when people focus so much on beating down the other and fighting for scraps like that, it signifies to me that there's this kind of collective subconscious realization that the pie is no longer expanding, and that you can't get yours without beating down someone else, and that's pretty fucking concerning for looking at a nation, however you choose to define that. That could be a pretty concerning leading indicator of what might be to come if things don't change. And I tell you what, man, I gotta believe that if we were truly free to innovate at the rate that we needed to innovate or wanted to innovate, it might be a little bit of a different story, And like to your point, Slappy, if people had something that they felt like they were producing truly, maybe you wouldn't see quite as much of this hatred of the other.
Yeah,
certainly. And I think there's also, a lot of, it's kind of like, we'll say like victim culture, people, there's this honor in being a victim. People take pride in being a victim, and you go through the public school system and it's all you learn about. It's all you hear. And I guess if you're white, you're kind of fed up with being the bad guy, use that in air quotes. And so, it's a reactionary movement, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I don't like participating in things I dislike. So I'm not just going to say, well, the left is doing it, so I'll do it to them.
Yeah, man, and I wish that I think I caught myself a little bit leaning a little bit that way, and it was tough. I think it was tough not to for a little while. It's just you get beat down by
Sure.
whatever the left might be for 8 or so years, and you're just like, man, this is brutal. And when you see somebody come along, like say Donald Trump, who I don't need to say that I dislike. And just enjoying a couple cheap shots at their expense is pretty enjoyable. You
Oh,
know?
absolutely. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
Watching,
And
watching CNN the night of the election was
it was
awesome.
incredible.
It was fun.
It was incredible. And you know, why I think it was incredible, if we want to take this into maybe a little bit more deeper of a take, why I think it was incredible was because I think it revealed something that was pretty profound, and that there is a silent America out there who maybe isn't quite as on board with progressivism as the 24/7 media would make you think. And I think we saw that even more importantly and more relevant to us in 2012 and 2008 when people were coming out for Ron Paul, and nobody expected it. They were trying to shut it down. And you don't even need a majority of a nation to latch onto an idea for it to become powerful. You know, let's just use the rough 80-20 rule. Maybe you need 20%, maybe even less than that. I bet 80% of the population is just going to kind of go along path of least resistance. You get 20% that's actually active and fighting. So maybe you need 11. You know, I don't know. I'm just napkin math, but so I think there's a little bit of hope there that there is something beneath the surface. There is that still that American heartbeat beneath the surface that wants to come out and express itself. And man, the way that it used to express itself was leaving other people the fuck alone and staying on your private property. And I hope that it returns to that. And I hope that we can draw those people out. But I don't think that the way to do that it necessarily is to always be just white knuckling a rifle and saying the government's going to come after me, although, you know, they may. But I hope that there's a commitment, you know, if we're anarcho-capitalists, I hope there is a commitment to the capitalist side too, and saying that there is huge benefits in commerce, and that is just the quickest way for peace to progress, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like we look at something like Uber that pops up, and people, they don't realize they're participating in anarchy, but they absolutely are.
Yes.
They just see a better product, and so they're rejecting taxis in favor of using
Right.
Uber and Lyft.
And the thing, when Uber first came out, I remember people talking about like, that's kind of weird. I don't think I want to get in a stranger's car, you know? And now it's not even a question. People do it all the time.
People
Dude,
don't
it's
even
crazy, man. I was taking cabs when I lived in DC. That was 2010, 11, 12. Like there was maybe there was Uber. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't popular. I remember I was taking cabs not that long ago. Bitcoin, that's 2009. I mean, how much has stuff changed? Rollo, you and me graduated college about the same time, and all of that stuff has basically been since we've been out of college.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing to think.
Wild. It's wild. It's completely changed the game. And where does that go when that fully manifests, man? It's going to be crazy. People, and that's what truly gets me excited, man. The agorism standpoint, and I think it was what Bucky Fuller said. You don't fight something you don't change something by fighting an existing reality. You just create something better. Yes. and work around it, and you just render the old model obsolete. And man, who's going to take a cab anymore? It's ludicrous.
It's expensive.
Yeah, people don't.
It takes forever.
If you go up to anybody roughly our age and you're like, yeah, well, let's just go grab a cab. I mean, they look at you like you had 10 heads.
Yeah,
and that's crazy because it hasn't been that long.
Did you notice how quickly the people started saying, "Let's Uber it"?
Yes.
Like with Scotch tape. Like same thing with Scotch tape. Scotch tape is not the clear play. That's like what is it? Magic tape. That's generic.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be generically
Certainly
called
is
whatever it is. Yeah, but everyone calls it Scotch tape. Here, grab a Kleenex. It's the same kind of thing going on, and it's brilliant.
Dude, it's brilliant and it's powerful, and single-handedly has hacked some bit away from the state, at least state power. Now, are they sucked into paying taxes again? Yeah. I mean, they are, you know, and that sucks. But I think with progressions with cryptocurrency, man, you're gonna start. Things are gonna start getting more and more difficult. And I think what happens is the state has to show its ass more and more, and it has to show it for what it truly is, and that's violence. And I think we're going to get to a point in not too long. I mean, if you look back, Bitcoin's been around for not even a decade yet. Where are we at in another decade? I think that you're going to get to a point where it is so obvious what the state is that and so easy to opt out that people are going to start doing it. And I don't think that it's necessarily going to be the 1776 moment in the way that 1776 was, where, you know, we're like, whoa, is that Paul Revere galloping by? Is it time to revolt? You know, like, I think it's going to be almost on an individual basis where people just kind of wake up to the fact that they're like, oh man, I don't have a bank account, but I've got money, and I can go get a loan for a house peer to peer, and I can, you know, I don't have to go through these traditional systems. And maybe they don't even realize necessarily that they're anarchists, almost, so to speak. It comes with that new territory. So I don't know. I mean, but there's a million ways this thing could play out, man, and it could get ugly too. That's for sure. I'm not denying that at all.
Yeah. Now I know I'm kind of switching gears a little bit, but you brought up cryptos, and I know you're into the cryptos for sure. Government. Do you think the state will stand by as this happens?
No, absolutely. I don't. I absolutely do not think they will stand by.
And so,
what they will do, I don't know.
You think it comes to regulating the exchanges, making them illegal,
right.
Having to register? How could they block it? I mean, you know, the people who are really into it, they'll know how to get the wallets and go peer to peer. But your average citizen, if Coinbase goes down, they have no clue.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. That is a I guess if you're analyzing it kind of like maybe a systems engineer, you know, you look for the system's most vulnerable, and it's most vulnerable at its most centralized points. Certainly, the exchanges right now are vulnerable, but they're coming decentralized exchanges. But ultimately, you still have to, I mean, barring 5 or 10 people in existence who just have all their money in crypto and never have to on-ramp or off-ramp or figured something out, people still have to on-ramp and off-ramp, and that's dangerous. But as more goods and services are offered in the crypto space for crypto, maybe you don't. You know, maybe you obtain it through exchange or labor, rather than exchange of dollars.
I think it's possible.
Yeah. Who knows where it's going to be in 10 years? I certainly don't. I can certainly hope that it's building momentum. You know, but yeah, I mean, I think that the only real tool ultimately that the state is going to be left with is fear, and the amount of fear that is going to be necessary, hopefully will well, I guess there's 2 roads, and one of them is pretty ugly, and the other one is some people wake up and say, man, this just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, and I realize it's a different issue, but if Uber would have went to each city or each state and asked for permission, there's no way we would have Uber today.
Absolutely not.
And then it got to the point where you couldn't. Now cities have tried and cities have done it, but I'm pretty sure Uber still operates in those cities. I know it was illegal in Philadelphia for a long time, but you could still get an Uber in Philadelphia. Now, when you're messing with their money, that's a different story. That's something they take very seriously. So I guess we'll see, because it's going to come to that.
I think you're right. I think it will, and it's going to be. But you know, before any violence happens, any real violence, I think that you're going to see. You know, it's a poker game, right? I mean, that they're going to try to bluff, and it's going to be for your safety. It's going to be for your kids' safety. You know, all the same old shit they roll out every single time.
Sex trafficking and drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to see that at a fever pitch soon, I bet.
But if we get people, if vendors are accepting it and people are spending it, they're going to say, no, it's not. It's how I get my dog food or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I guess time will tell.
I mean, if cryptocurrency does fail and people start storing the value of their wealth in tractors, I'll be set. So I don't know about you guys.
You got it in. I won't be. It's a depreciating asset.
Well, you can write it off.
True.
Your tax Uncle Sam, huh?
Just buy a bunch of tractors and write off the depreciation. There you go.
Perfect.
that's the real scheme. That's the post cryptocurrency scheme. That's ultimately crypto is just segueing us into a tractor based economy and depreciation.
Yes.
I'm smarter than you guys think.
Yeah, right. You're out ahead of the curve, man.
I actually had a real topic or question or point I wanted to make, and my own comment completely threw me off.
Oh yeah, good. All right, so where are we going? Should I just hijack this, take this into aliens, or where
Wherever you
You got
want.
something on aliens? Let's hear that.
By the way, just so I can say it so people don't question us, you didn't have a free market success story. We did agree before the episode that talking about cryptocurrency and the agorism behind that is our free market success story. So
Yeah.
don't think you got cheated from one of them.
Yep.
We gave it to you.
Yep. But far more importantly, the segue from a crypto to kind of a more tractor-based monetary unit.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Which, I
that's the
mean,
real market.
if you listen to, Bob Murphy on some recent podcasts, he's talked about tractors at least several times. So
Yeah, I know.
it's coming from one of the leading Austrian economists out there too. So don't just take my word for it.
Hey, dude, he's dog whistling farmers. That's what that's all about.
That's exactly it. There's no other explanation.
To tie this back in, the farmers, the corn farm, seeing the tractor go across the field, that's Americana.
That's a little slice of Americana.
It is.
That ties that topic up in a nice little bow.
It does.
Speaking of nice little topics, I wanted to slip this in. This new Todd Takes hashtag that we've kind of created in our group is fantastic. Like, that guy makes me cry laughing so hard at his just normie libertarian takes.
That is good. Yeah. So if you're listening, do the hashtag Todd Takes, and hit one of us up on Twitter if you wanna hear more or learn more about it. Surprisingly, I don't think he's blocked anyone yet, to his credit.
No, I don't think we've been outright all that ridiculous about it. It's kind of a fun little, like, you just open it up every now and then, just for a little giggle.
Yeah. That is good. That little group chat we have is too good.
It's great.
I love it. Speaking of that, I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot, of course.
Sure.
But you're kind of putting together a little podcast, kind of in the works. I don't know if you want to talk about that yet.
Yeah, sure.
Now that I brought it up already.
Well, we're in it now. I think me and Bird, and then you, hopefully, to the degree that you can with your schedule, are going to be starting. We all Anarchy Ball started this group chat like probably 6 months ago, and a bunch of us are in it, and it's a fantastic little chat. Great place to blow off steam and just experience the insanity of 50 other ANCAPs, but surprisingly civil. And so we decided that we want to make kind of a not a variety show, but like have a kind of a rotating guest list, and anybody that's willing to, from the Anarchy Ball chat, to hop in and podcast with us. But I think Bird, I can't remember his actual handle. I want to give him an actual shout out, but I'll find it at some point. And Bird and I and you, hopefully, will be creating something at some point, so stay tuned. That's
Bird Archist.
Bird Archist, yeah.
Sorry, Bird. Yeah, no, I think it'll be fun. Because what we were talking about the other day was, just kind of just have a thing where we can talk and not have to worry about having these statist overtones in there, but
right.
but also just kind of just having fun. So nothing
exactly.
to get annoyed.
As much as removing the statist overtones, maybe the most important thing might be just removing the anarchist overtones every now and then. Just like,
I know,
just taking a deep breath, and blowing it. But I think that's kind of what that chat is about a lot of the time too. Is that a lot of times it's just like, holy shit, I gotta step away from things and just like blow off some steam. That's great. It's great. It's a good little chat, and I think that podcast could be pretty good.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that there will be some discussion of Todd Takes and normie libertarianism. But hey, by the way, I want to get you guys' thoughts on this, because this is kind of always on my mind when I'm talking about kind of the agorist take and maybe the more capitalist and less anarchist, if that's kind of an awkward phrasing, but because obviously they go hand in hand, but maybe less like, I don't know how to phrase it, but I sometimes feel like I'm being a bit of a normie libertarian because I don't always necessarily push hard on the purity thing.
Yeah.
Even though I can't imagine anybody's going to take issue with my purity. I'm pretty damn well the bottom right side of the spectrum there. But I do think that for example, I like Ron Paul or I love Ron Paul, and he's not an anarchist. So what's y'all's take on that? What's your take on where's the line? What can we do?
I mean, I think there's a time and a place for the purity thing. I think it's always important to stick to your libertarian principles, but also have to realize that the vast majority of the world is nowhere near us politically where we think. There's like 5 of us. And so if you immediately start bashing someone over the head with libertarian purity tests or whatever, they're just going to tune you right out. And so, I mean, I think it's, you got to be patient and find, what I try to do is I try to find someone's pain point with the state. And then go after that. And then hopefully, as we have conversations or that single conversation, it makes them start thinking about other stuff. Just put the ideas in the back of their heads.
No, I talk to Rollo about this all the time. I roll my eyes at a lot of the libertarian infighting because I just don't think it matters. Like you just said, there's about 5 of us. So who cares? I mean, yes, there's certain websites and things that annoy me. And of course, I disagree with them. But I prefer to focus my time on the normies, on the guys out there who are Trump supporters because they don't necessarily like Trump, but they hated Hillary and don't like the system and wanted to give a finger to the system. Well, there's a target for me there. Now we can get a conversation going. Right. And so, I mean, I would probably get criticized on my purity, but I'm as anarchist as you can be. I don't want the state to do anything at all, ever. But I can have a conversation with a guy and hopefully bring him along. And even if you only bring him along 90% of the way, that's better than where he was. And the more people start thinking like that, hey, we're in a better spot. So,
dude, that's true. Just admitting, or just getting someone to admit that the cops murdered someone is a huge step in the right direction.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably one of the last steps. Like,
right? Well, no. I'm not saying that to get rid of the police, but to have a video. Because I remember a few years ago, some of these videos that we're seeing of the police outright murdering people, I would make up every excuse in the book. But to get someone, not trying to get them to say that, we need private police and the police are, the soldiers of the state, whatever, just for them to get them to realize that, you know what? Yeah, that's not good right there. Yeah. I think those are kind of winnable things and small steps in the right direction,
And even just getting when 10 years ago, I didn't know what an ANCAP was. I didn't really know. I kind of knew what libertarianism was, but I wasn't all the way there. It was a long discussion. It took time. It took a lot of reading and a lot of thinking and a lot of talks to get where I was. But even I think of my coworkers, I don't work with any ANCAPs. I'm in sales. As far as I know, none of my clients know who Murray Rothbard is. Yeah. But if I can have conversations with them and maybe they don't agree, but maybe they don't think I'm a lunatic either, I think that's a good step. Yeah.
Yes, I think you're right. I think there's a big difference too between people that have not been, that information hasn't come across their bow and people who that information has come across their bow and seem to flaunt it. Again, running back to the border thing, I just can't get my mind around why there are libertarians out there advocating for a border wall.
I'll never understand that.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe, and I'm so much more sympathetic to somebody who's maybe has never really considered a free market court system, but wants a state than somebody who has and wants a state,
Oh yeah. Well, I would expect Corey conservative to want strong borders.
Yeah, right.
That makes sense. Obviously, it makes sense from their perspective.
They can be approaching that question honestly to themselves and reach that conclusion.
Right.
They're not being, in my mind, dishonest to themselves, even though I disagree with it. But they just haven't really considered that side of it or something. But then it kind of almost gets into this holier than thou thing that I really hate too. So it's I don't know, man. I'm pretty torn about it, but.
Well, I think I just said I'll never understand why they think that, and I think I do understand why they think that. And I'm just going to try to rehash maybe the argument and tell me if you think I'm wrong.
Yeah, sure.
We need a border wall because we have a state, and there is a big welfare state. And by letting these people in, they're going to vote for socialists. So you're committing suicide because you have such a bleeding heart. They're all going to come in and vote away your rights and vote away your culture and your welfare. Does that sound accurate? Like
I think that's what they're.
Because I want to make. Yeah, we've been called communists, so it's like, and they say we don't even understand their point of view. Well, I think I do understand their point of view. I just don't understand how you can call yourself an anarchist and ask for bigger government.
Yeah,
the government hasn't solved anything, and I don't know. I mean, I will never support the government throwing people out for crossing a line.
No,
I just don't support them for, even if, I don't know.
I just don't
Preventing people from going a certain place is the correct solution. I just don't trust the state to be able to figure out the problem accurately. It's the flaw of central planning. It's the economic calculation problem. Like,
sure,
they just can't. You want to talk about being practical? Don't let the state try to solve stuff. That's being practical and pragmatic.
There's no way that it can distribute scarce resources effectively. It just can't. We found this out, kind of academically in the 20s, and then actually going forward from there. And we learned this lesson so many times every year.
Yeah, and no one
bodies to show for it.
No one knows how to do it, and that's why you let people try and learn from others and fail, and so you're not bringing everyone down if someone makes a mistake.
Right. So. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a conundrum for sure. I don't really, Slappy, to your point, I guess you did describe their viewpoint, but more nuanced. I guess I still don't understand. It's not for me that I don't want them calling themselves anarchists if they believe in a violently funded border wall, but I don't think that is honing in on my frustration quite. Like, I mean, I'm definitely frustrated with that, but I guess I just don't get why for 99% of things, they're convinced that central planning can't work. But in this 1% of things, they're convinced that central planning is the only thing that can work.
Right. And that's what I'll never understand. That's what
I can't.
How do you...
I don't mean to be accusatory of them, but there has to be something else going on.
You think? I mean, man, I think I went through my conspiracy phase like in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and I definitely have a foot in that world, but I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like everybody can be a Fed. That's like almost the easy way out.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, we're talking about one specific group right now.
Yeah.
I just think so, but maybe I could be wrong. I have no idea. It's just, but you're right, Rollo. It seems like something else might be going on. I have no idea. It's just bizarre behavior. Bizarre behavior.
Oh well. So I almost called you Bird. So, Car, do you want to tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, man. So I'm on Twitter at CarCampIt, and then I've decided that to kind of split out some of my cryptocurrency stuff at Crypto Nigel, Nigel, and that's really the only stuff I got going on right now. So at least on social media. So that's where you can find me.
Cool, and we'll have those links on our show notes page, mcflugel.com/74, where you'll be able to find links to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, as well as finding us on Twitter and on Facebook and our other social media outlets. So before we let you go, Car, one last thing on one of the really big Americana items is the Eagles or the Vikings this week. You saw me melting down in that Twitter chat we were having. About complaining about Nick Foles and having a heart attack at the end of the game.
Dude, like I said, my dad's from PA and I got a lot of buddies from Philly, so I got to go Eagles.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Said on the podcast by two Philly guys. So.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want you guys throwing this one in the bin.
We'll see if Bird has something to say about that.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
So, Carr, thanks for thanks for
Thanks for
joining
having
us.
us on our podcast.
Yeah. You're welcome anytime, guys. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and you're welcome. You're also welcome back anytime. We had a blast this episode. Any last words from anybody?
No, I mean, thanks for having me. It was a blast, and we'll see you out there on the website.
Alrighty. Thanks for listening this week. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.